Mission to Dres, the fifth planet in the Kerbal Solar System. Dres is analogous to Ceres in the real world. Ceres? Ceres? Anyway, I think Dres is probably the least popular planet in the Kerbal System. When you look at videos, you look at pictures, galleries, screenshot galleries, nobody goes to Dres. People don't like Dres. Dres is boring, I guess. And that's why I picked it for this. Initially, I just needed more science because I'm playing on the new science mode in Kerbal version 0.23, and I wanted to go to another planet and do all the science. And so I wanted to go anywhere outside of the Kerbal, outside of the Mun and Minmus and Kerbal, and I chose. And so after deciding to leave that planetary system, I chose Dres because nobody ever goes there. It's and I think the reason nobody goes there is because it looks a lot like the Mun. It's the same kind of grayish color, a lot of craters, low gravity, lower anyway than on like Planet Kerbal. So it looks like the Mun, but it's much further away and harder to get to. So I decided, by golly, that's where I wanted to go. So what you're looking at right now, well, that is the pilot. That is a Kerbal knot, and this is the Traveler, the KSP Traveler. That's the name of this spaceship, and it follows the same general design plan that I've used for a lot of missions these days, where I have one ship, which is the landing module, and it has landing legs and crew for like 2 or 3 crew members, and smaller gas tanks and all that jazz. And that small landing craft is connected to a big ship that has the engines and a ton of fuel. And obviously, the Traveler, what you're looking at right now, is the big ship with the ton of fuel and the engines. This is actually using nuclear engines from a mod, and they're the same. Oh yeah, here's where I lost control trying to dock at the space station. Anyway, this nuclear engine has the same fuel efficiency as the smaller ones that come with the game, but it has more oomph, so it doesn't take you as much time to build up speed. So here is the Spock Science Station. This is a space station that I put in orbit. The landing module is already docked with the space station, and so now all I have to do is dock the Traveler component to the space station so the station can refuel the Traveler, and then the Traveler and the landing module will disconnect. The Dres lander will both disconnect from the station, connect with each other, and fly off to Dres. Docking the Traveler to the space station was horrendously difficult because the Traveler, we'll just look at it. It is huge. It is a gigantic, it's like an oil tanker. It's mostly fuel and lots of it for a very long mission. And even though some of it had been used up getting to the space station, it was just big and heavy and bulky. It was hard to turn. It was hard to maneuver. I filled it with lots of RCS and everything, hoping that would be enough to be able to maneuver it to dock. I love these shots of the Kerbals floating around out of the windshields of the space station. This is the cupola of the space station, and we can see the Kerbals floating around out there. I love that. So yeah, docking that thing was a beast. And you saw earlier, I almost ran it. It almost ran into the space station at high speed. That could have been a disaster, and was luckily that disaster was avoided. So here we are. The Kerbals are just floating around. That guy looks so happy. He's enjoying his job as an astronaut. So part of the role playing of this mission was when the Traveler and the Dres lander docked with the station. I did a crew rotation because obviously they were bringing new Kerbals up from the surface, but then I kind of swapped some of those Kerbals around. So some of the Kerbals that flew up to the station ended up staying on the station, and some of the station crew members got in the Traveler. I love this. You can see the Traveler slowly backing away after it decouples from the space station. That's fantastic. Beautiful view through the window. So some of the Kerbals that came up just relieved the station crew, and some of the station crew transferred into the Traveler and the Dres lander to actually perform the mission to Dres. I don't know. I mean, I figure after you've been in the space station a long time, you probably, what you really probably want to do is go home. I decided they just needed a change of pace, so get off the space station and fly to another planet. Might as well have some fun. So there we go. Docking these guys together was a lot easier because the Dres lander is very small and light and maneuverable, and I balanced the RCS really well, and it was a lot easier to drive. So as long as it's the Dres lander that does the driving and the Traveler just stays put, it's easy peasy. But when the Traveler itself had to perform a docking maneuver on the station, that was hard. So here's Dres. We are now in orbit over planet Dres. And there we are. There's the Traveler. We're decelerating. We're actually this is after we've just arrived at Dres, and right now we're still slingshotting around and out of Dres's orbit. So we're burning our engines trying to slow down enough to be captured by Dres's gravity. But see, I love this spaceship. But see, Dres is just a gray cratered. It has less, it has fewer craters. It looks like than the Mun, but basically it looks kind of like the Mun. You know, it's not as visually appealing or interesting as the other planets in the game, and I think that's why it's not as commonly visited. But whatever. I needed to do some science, so here we have touchdown. The Dres lander has touched down on the surface of Dres, and now our Kerbal get out. I did all of the science experiments. We've got the Science Lab, 9000 Junior. We've got the Mystery Goo. We've got the thermometer and everything. We've got all the science instruments, even though some of them don't work on Dres, because like there's no atmosphere, so the atmospheric monitor didn't do any science or whatever. But the lander's got everything just in case. So I did all the science, and instead of radioing it back, you know, this is a round trip mission. I've been trying to not send my Kerbals on suicide missions or to pretend they're colonists when they're clearly not. I have been trying to have them return safely home, and that's where science is really helping out. You get more science points if you return the experiments back home and the crew back home and everybody comes back home. So that gives me a real incentive to do that. So this is a round trip. So we did all the science experiments and they got out. The Kerbals got out. They did, you know, we're ditching our empty fuel tanks from the lander. And now it's on minimal power. All it needs to do is dock with the Traveler. The Traveler will bring it the rest of the way home. So they got soil samples, they did EVA science, they did all the science on the surface, plus all the instrumentation on the lander, on the craft. So this was really, I mean, I think this was the maximum amount of science. Had a few attempts to dock. I guess docking is always hard. I shouldn't say that it's easy with the Dres lander, just that it was much easier than with the gigantic, bulky Traveler. But anyway, so I really think we did as much science as is possible at on Dres at this point. So here we are. We've flown back home. We've got a little bit of fuel left. There we go. We've disengaged the final landing module from the fuel tank because this module here, the cockpit of the Traveler and the Dres lander, has parachutes all over the place. And there we go. There's our parachutes. And so I had a little problem though right here. Bam! I try to burn the engines to decelerate some more, and the thing explodes and splits apart. But everybody's actually okay. I was really worried here. And it turns out that even though the ship exploded into two separate pieces, both parts continued to parachute down to the water, and we're fine. All of the crew survived. All of the science survived. It was a successful mission. Ladies and gentlemen, 3 Kerbals flew to Dres, 2 of them landed and walked on Dres, and all 3 returned home safe and sound. And I got thousands of science. It was pretty cool.